Good morning, guys. It is January 10th, 2022. Happy Monday. Today we are in chapter 8. We finished chapter 7 yesterday. And this section of chapter 8, verses 1 through 14, in this Bible is titled The Flood Waters Recede. We are not going through all 14 verses today. We're just going to be focusing on verses 1 through 4. And this is such hope. We've seen such tragedy in chapter 7, and now we're seeing hope in chapter 8. So we're focusing on chapter 8, verses 1 through chapter 8, verses 7. Let me read it. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock with him in the boat, and he sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the flood waters began to recede. The underground waters stopped flowing, and the torrential rains from the sky were stopped. So the flood waters gradually receded from the earth. After 150 days, exactly 5 months, from the time of the flood began, the boat came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. I say this is hope because in the midst of people dying, in the midst of this giant flood, this storm that Noah and his family are in, it says God remembers them. Now, I don't know about you, but maybe Noah's panicking at this moment. Maybe Noah and his family are sitting there going, we're stuck on this boat forever, and everything is dying around us. And what if God forgets us in the middle of this pain, in the middle of this storm? And I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel that way. I feel like in the moment of complete chaos, in the moment of complete devastation in my life or something tragic, I feel like God forgot me. Like he just forgot that I existed. But in here it says God remembered Noah and everything on the ark. God remembered them. God knew them. It's not like he forgot and then he was like, oh yeah, that's where I put them. No, what this remembered means is not God misplaced them and then God remembered where he put them, like we misplace our car keys and then, oh yeah, I put them here. No, this means God was focused on them. God knew exactly where they were. Now think about this boat comparative to the earth and how small it seemed. You know, the earth is huge, and there's this boat floating above the waters of the flood, and comparative to that, this boat is really small. Comparative to God, this boat is really small. But he knew exactly where they were. He remembered his covenant to Noah. So he started to recede the waters, and they landed safely on these mountains. Isn't that hope for us? Isn't that a moment in our lives where we can say, God knows where we are. God knows the promises that he has given us. And I don't know about you, but after 150 days on this boat with torrential downpours to the point of where none of us have ever seen, and just complete chaos like we sometimes see in the world, like hurricanes and tornadoes and all that stuff. Now magnify that by 1,000,000 and you've got 150 days of this. The waters are so high, they cover mountains, they cover trees. It's not a little leak in your basement. It's everything is underwater. The highest peaks that you can look at, the biggest things that you can look at are underwater. And you're floating above it. You're safe in this boat, and you're floating above mountaintops. You're floating above everything, treetops. Imagine that. And imagine how lost you must feel at some points. You're taking care of these animals, you're doing all this stuff. You're like, God, do you even know we're here? We're so tiny. It's just God remembered them. God knew where they were. He saw them, and he guided them to this place, to this mountain range. And sometimes it's hard. Whether we feel misplaced by God, like he's not seeing us in the situation we're in, or whether we feel like we made such a grievous sin and there's no way God could ever remember our hearts or remember the promise he made to us to forgive whatever it is that we've done. Right, here's the hope that even in the midst of the storm, even in the midst of the flood, he sees us and he knows us. So in the midst of the anxiety and the fear and the doubt and all that stuff, he sees us and he wants to say, come close to me. He wants to say, I see you on that boat, clinging to the only thing you feel is comfort and safety. I just with Noah thought, if he left the ark, he would drown. There's no way out. No safe ground to stand on. But there is. God's promise. God's promise to Noah is his safe ground. God's promise to us is our safe ground in the middle of the storm. It's hard to see sometimes. It's hard to feel secure when everything around you is shaking. And where all your hopes and all your dreams are collapsing and you don't know what is up and what is down. And it's hard to stand. It's hard to stand in the midst of tragedy. It's hard to stand in the midst of a disease or whatever it is that you're going through. But God says, stand on the firm ground that I've given you. God says, stand and be with me. Be like Noah in the ark, safe. Safe from the floodwaters. God does not promise us a life of consistent flourishing. God tells us we're going to go through trials. We're going to go through things because we live in a broken world. And that's just the way it is right now until Jesus comes back. But that doesn't mean we don't have a sturdy boat to be in. That doesn't mean we don't have a rock to stand on. We do. We have a steady foundation, and it's right here. This is our boat. This is our ark, where we can sit there and read his word, his promises to us. And we can look and say, okay, I know I can get through this. I don't know how, but I know I can. We have community around us. Like Noah had his family, and his family had him. And they all had God. So, I know it's hard to see sometimes, but whatever situation you're going through, where can you see the hope? While the floodwaters are rising, where can you see the blessings that you have? Sometimes when I'm in the midst of something, I literally thank God for the bed we sleep on. because that's a blessing. But that's my foundation, is that I have a bed to sleep on. I have that promise, and God fulfilled that promise. He said, you will be secure in me. So we need to remember to see our ark and to know God remembers us. And God knows where we are, and God knows what we're going through. And He may be working behind the scenes so we're not seeing the mass deliverance from whatever we're going through at the current moment, but we know that God is there and He's doing something. We just need to be still and be patient, and sometimes that's the hardest thing. I mean, Noah must have been like going stir crazy after 150 days, being like, okay, it's been 5 months and I'm still on this boat. I bet he could close his eyes and see every inch of that boat. But he knew that when he was released from that boat, when he left that boat, there would be dry ground. So can we look at our situations like that? Can we say, you know what, we're going through this and this is painful, but we know on the other side there's dry ground. So we need to trust that God is working and God remembers us. That's my challenge to you today. I hope you guys see Jesus in everything you do today and everywhere around you. I hope you guys have a wonderful Monday. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.